What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be working on changing out the steering wheel in my 2007 Honda Civic Si sedan. Earlier this year, my steering wheel was worn out a lot. That's a pretty common problem with these 8th gens. So I had this this wrap, and I got it either in a deal with some other stuff, or I got it really cheap. So it's one of those knockoff, probably eBay ones. And so I wrapped it. There's a picture here when it looked like when it was done. I didn't document the process, but it was a long process. It took some time to do all the stitching, and this one goes right over the old steering wheel leather. You don't cut anything off. You just put this thing over it. And so, the durability of these, at first it looked great. It felt pretty okay, but the durability of these things is terrible. As you can see here, it's just awful. Let me see if it'll zoom, if the camera will catch it. It's just very, very worn out. It looks really gross, and it feels about as gross as it looks. So this is unacceptable. This is worse, or as bad or worse than what is underneath. So luckily, I have a spare steering wheel that's in absolutely mint condition, which I picked up from the junkyard, and that is the one that I'm going to toss in here today. So we're going to document this process on replacing this. I'm going to keep this steering wheel because it's actually not that it's not terrible underneath here. I'm going to cut this one off, and maybe if it's not too bad, I may restore it, or I may just invest in another more quality wrap and rewrap it, and have that as a spare, swap it out. But for now, this one's pretty awful. So here we go. So the tools we're going to use to take off and replace the steering wheel are pretty straightforward. It's not actually a large amount of tools. Ratchet, T30 Torx with, let me see if I can get to zoom in here. So a T30 Torx, the little extension, flathead, a 14 mil socket, deep socket, and you may need the extension too. This is to take off the steering wheel. It's got a bolt that holds it. A flathead, a couple flatheads, a Phillips, and a 10 mil ratcheting, and then a steering wheel puller. This is a Harbor Freight one. You can get these. You can even rent them at AutoZone, I think. I bought mine because I use it more than I think I was going to. It's a great investment. So I'll show how we're going to use this later. And optional things that I have, which you may or may not have, but makes it a little easier, is your a Milwaukee electric ratchet, and my Milwaukee high torque impact. It's got different settings, so I use that. I'm going to use that to zip off the steering wheel bolt because it's close. It's in there pretty tight. So not a whole lot of stuff you need, but this is it, and this is what you're going to need to take it off. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is disconnect your ground. Don't disconnect just this one. You're positive. Always disconnect the ground. It's a 10 millimeter, so it just comes right off. Not a big deal. Bam, just like that. Because we're going to be taking off the airbag. So that's why you want to let this disconnect this so the airbag doesn't deploy. It's got an automatic, when you disconnect it, it shorts the connector out. So that way it reduces the risk of it initiating. But anyway, that's the first step. So one of the first things you need to do is get your Torx T30 socket. And you have to put it, there's a hole right here, and that's where the nuts for the airbag. So you stick it in there. And with your ratchet, you take this bad boy off. So, and there's one on either side. So there's one on this side, and there's another one on the other side right there. So you just take those off, which it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to film that. That'll loosen the airbag, and that'll give you access to the bolt in there. And then when there's another on the bottom, there's a access plate right here, which you can pull out. Which let me loosen this first, and then I'll show you guys. Okay, now we're going to move on to this side. I got my Torx. So right here's the access hole, and okay, it's in there. Okay, so I'm going to go and take that the rest of the way out, and that'll be... Okay, so we took out both of the screws. This is what the screw looks like. So we got both of these out. The steering wheel is now loose, so you can pull it out, but we're not going to pull it out just yet. There's a... down here, let's see a really good shot of it. See, you need to take this guy out, and then disconnect the airbag. That's the where the airbag connector is. So just need a flat head. To pry it. And then that connector's right there, so kind of hard. You have to push this back. This little black thing right here. And pull, but it's really hard to do with one hand, so maybe I can. I'm going to do that off camera, but you have to pull this back, you see? And then separate the connectors, so it was really difficult to do with well, there you go, I got it with one hand. Bam. So now it's disconnected. Here's the cover. So now you can pull out the airbag. So there's some connectors in here that you don't want to mess up. This is the ground, so we're going to take this off, which you have to just, you push this pin right here, or this button, and then that will release it and it'll come out. But I'm going to push that, pull it out, but just like that. And your airbag's out, so we're going to put that off to the side. And now we just have the steering wheel left to remove. And I believe this is a 14, and it sure is, it's a 14 mil, so you can take this off. I'm going to use my impact wrench to take this off, because it's easy, and just bam, and I'm done. And then I'm going to use the puller. So this puller is really nice. I'm going to set it up and show you guys how that works. So now that we have the airbag off, we got to take these harnesses and make sure they're clear so we can take off this whole steering wheel. So the main thing that's hooked in here is this harness here. So we just have to remove this clip just like that. And once that's clear, this is part of the steering wheel, so you can even just leave it like that. It's not going to hurt anything. This is what you have to be worried about, because this is part of the clock spring. So we want to make sure it's clear of that, but it should be. And once we start pulling this thing off, we can finesse finesse this out of there. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to start pulling this off until this connector has been disconnected. Okay, so this is the steering wheel puller I have. I got it at Harbor Freight. Probably paid like 20 bucks or something for it. I don't remember. You got to use the coupon. It was definitely less than $30, so it's very useful. So the couple of main takeaways are you need the 2 bolts that are going to thread into the steering wheel, which it's these ones. So you take these out. You're going to need this because this threads into this thing like this. So I'm going to thread it in there. Okay. And then this thing right here, you slip it in there like that. So close that. So when you put it in here, this is just notional right now, but more or less it's going to be like this. You push it in there like that. You thread the 2 bolts inside the steering wheel, whatever pattern fits. And then this thing puts pressure and pops the steering wheel right out. Because otherwise, it's pretty much super hard to pull this thing out. You have to exert some force to remove it from the spline. So I'm going to set that up right now, and then we'll take this thing off. Okay, so I got this thing set up. The 2 screws are in here and they're threaded almost all the way. Let me turn my light on so you can see. They're threaded almost all the way in. You want to put as much thread as you can in this thing, otherwise it'll strip. This thing is aluminum. And see, this is making contact with that. So we want to make sure it's nice and tight. And this is a 14 millimeter, I believe. So I don't know where my 14 millimeters on the socket. So on the impact, so we're just going to get this on and we're just going to tighten it, and as it tightens, it should just pull this thing out. Okay, so you just turn on this. This is a 14, coincidentally, same as the center. You turn on it and it'll start coming out, and let's see if it's loose. Oh yeah, it's already loose, so it didn't take much at all. A couple of turns. I've taken the steering wheel off before, but if your steering wheel hasn't been off before, it can be quite a pain. So I'm going to loosen this. And yeah, it's super loose. You can see in there that the whole steering wheel is moving. So I'm going to take all this off, I'm going to take this off, these off, pull this whole thing off, and then the steering wheel is going to come right. Okay, so bolts out. And steering wheel is going to come out. And like I said, we have to make sure this connector doesn't get messed up, because that's your airbag connector, which it came right out, and bam, it's out. So that's the clock spring. So we're going to take this out and see what we can do to put the new one in there. So here's the steering wheel that I'm putting on there. It's in really good condition for the most part. I just need to clean it, which I'm going to do right now. There's a part right here where the leather's separating a little bit from the wheel right here, but that's just glued on, I think. So I think if I get I can heat it up and glue it on there. So I'm going to work on that, but I'm going to take this trim piece off and then clean everything up right now, and then see where we're at. So to take it off, just need a flathead screwdriver, or I'm sorry, a Phillips screwdriver, and there's some screws in the back here that you have to take off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So this is where it's separating, and you can see maybe there's some adhesive in there. There's some goop, and it seems that it just kind of broke away. So it's supposed to be on there pretty tight like that. So I think I have some spray adhesive that I can use to spray in there, and I'll zip tie it down so it'll adhere to it. This side's nice and tight. See how the other sides are nice and tight, so you can see that it's in there. So that's not a big deal. I'll take care of that. I have this stuff. It's this high strength spray adhesive. I've had it for a long time. I don't remember where I bought it, but this stuff is really good. I'm gonna spray that. I'm gonna spray this stuff in here, and I'm gonna try and take all this old adhesive in there out and just scrape it off. Okay, I cleaned it up as best I could. It's not perfect, but that's okay. So this stuff was really hard and crusty in there, so that's all right. I'm going to just, like I said, roll this around the back of it like that, so that way when I spray, if any stuff comes out, it doesn't get all over the steering wheel itself. The stuff, if I remember, is kind of messy. And then I have some zip ties. So I'm going to zip tie it down while I do it. So stuff's really stinky too, from what I remember. All right, so probably put too much there, but it's okay. Maybe I'm using the zip tie to spread it around, so that way it gets good coverage, everything. Let's see. This stuff looks kind of gross. Let's see if we can see the contact points. Yeah, it's pretty good. So it's making contact all around where it's supposed to. So when we do that, wipe off this excess and get my zip ties going. That one was kind of dirty. That's when I use the spray around. I don't know how fast acting this stuff is, but it seems it gets tacky pretty quick. I'm wearing gloves because I don't want this stuff on my skin. Because for obvious reasons, I don't know, it's some sort of industrial adhesive, so probably not a good idea to get on your skin. I'm not going to zip them down super tight because I still have to snip them off. That looks pretty darn good. Shoot. I'm going to put one more right here. And then I don't know how long I have to let it sit. I'm going to let it sit for a good while. And come back to it, and then that gap should be closed. So okay. Oh great, so there's a gap right there, so that's where I can snip it. So actually I can tighten these up a little more. That way they're nice and snug. Not too snug, but snug. It makes a nice bond, see? So looks pretty good, and I'll just snip them right here. So that looks really good. So once that's the only major defect I saw with this wheel. I took off the old wrap from the steering wheel, and this is what it looks like. This is the tape that you use to stick it inside of here. You see, to the steering wheel. This stuff is all tacky and gross. It left a yucky residue that I'm gonna have to do something about the steering wheel if I'm gonna try and save it. But this is the part that wore out prematurely. As you can tell, it looks horrible. It started splitting. It's just, this stuff was just trash. So not good by any means. And so I had to cut this stitching off with my trusty knife, box cutter. So this is going straight in this right here is going straight in the trash, where it belongs. Onto the steering wheel. So this is my original steering wheel. It's actually not as bad as I thought. This was where the wear, the majority of the wear was on top. So it's you can feel it, but it's not awful. This is actually not as bad as what I just showed you with the wrap. So there's a lot of sticky residue on here, so I'm going to use something like soap or something like that to goo gone. Actually, you know what works? I found that works really good is WD-40. WD-40 seems to break up this sticky residue, so it's an oil, so it may even condition the steering wheel a bit. So anyway, I'm going to try that, but I'm going to put everything back together on this guy. I have all the bezels from the other one, just so I can save it. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this part here, but maybe I'll rewrap it or try and repair this. I've seen people do leather repair, so maybe it's something I can tackle. So here's a new wheel. The zip ties work pretty good. There's still a little bit of a gap there, so there's a blemish in this wheel where this wasn't cut right on this side, so there's a bit of a gap, but it's okay. I can live with it. Once we tighten everything up, it'll bring this in and it'll look a little bit better. One thing I noticed is that this came off of an EX model, so it's almost exactly the same as the SI, except the backing's different. The SI has a silver backing, and the EX has a black one. So they're identical otherwise. Just that's the only minute difference, is that this one's black and this one's silver. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with the silver and keep it all the same. So we're gonna put things back together and then put this back on the car. I just switched over this whole bezel piece that had these connected, and I took them out. I disassembled this one, but just to clean it. But I ended up just reusing my old one. So this all just goes together. So this is ready to go put back in the car. So here we go. We're just gonna line this thing up. I already pulled this guy through, so you have to be mindful that you have to pull through the airbag connector, which is this yellow one. And then this connector will click into the clock spring body. So have to line the splines up, and then there's some slots on the clock spring, and so there we go. Bam, it's in there. Get our 14 mil. Pop that in there. I'm gonna use my impact to snap this guy down. Got that. And then let me put some light here. And we're going to put this connector in there. That's connected. This goes to the airbag, so we're going to do that. We're going to hook the airbag up right now. After I get this in there, I'm going to push these in because they're good to go. Okay, that's all good. All right, so let me get the impact and we'll take care of that right now. Okay, so we have the connectors here. So we connected the ground and hooked it in. It's the black cable right there. It's really hard to do with one hand, so that's hooked up. I'm going to fish this yellow cable down to the bottom and then hook that up like I showed you earlier in disconnecting it, and then the airbag will just slip right in and I'll reattach it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And there it is, we're done. I hope this video helped you guys out. If you need to replace the steering wheel in your 8th gen or any of the other associated components, the bezel, the airbag, any of the controls, this kind of covers a lot of that. Just taking how you take this whole assembly apart. This is a common issue at this wrap. The steering wheel just gets worn out in these cars. The other steering wheel, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it yet. I might where it's coming out, where it's wearing out right here, I may recondition it. That way I have an extra. I'm not sure if I want to wrap it after this experience. It didn't turn out too well for me. Let me know in the comments if you guys have had better experience with wraps, and what brands or what has worked for you guys and the longevity of those. Because I've seen some pictures and some posts of people doing that. It looks really nice, so it looked good while it lasted, which wasn't very long in my case. So anyway, until next time, guys, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.